All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I have no idea. I was trying to make it brighter in here, but now it looks really freaking bright because I was so dark before. So I don't know if that's helping or hurting right now. Um, anyways, so yeah, there's things from God's value system, original system, that's going to harm you here, and that's in large part due to the fact that this place is dying. It's in a fallen state, and is the God of this world doesn't really want you to be doing anything from the place that he uh, got fired from. So, yeah, there's going to be some opposition and all that stuff. But, you know, the point is that if you're doing like God's way is the superior way, even if it might not look like it is. The fact is that we are made in God's image, and this place is made by Him. So even with your hands tied, and even with you not getting any of the perks and the benefits from this place, just by using His value system, you can still thrive here, and you can still, um, even though it might not look like thriving to everyone else, and then sometimes you might even just suffer. But even if you're suffering, whether you're suffering or you're thriving here, um, it's a temporary thing. So um, don't get comfortable. And it sort of ensures that you can't get comfortable, because even if you're thriving here in the way that you're by obeying God, it's still a way that is, it's not fulfilling enough that would make you, it should be fulfilling enough that would make you take your eyes off of God, which is what happens when you get worldly wealth and things start working for you here in this realm. When things start coming to you and you've got people flocking to you, it can get you can get your eyes off of God. So you don't want that. Um, so that's another big thing that just is not emphasized enough, which is that this place is temporary. 80 years, 120 years max is just simply not enough to justify an eternal separation from God. It just doesn't make any sense. And you may not realize that now. Things feel like, every day is dragging on, it's mundane, but you are an eternal being. And the moment you shed this um, earthly vessel, you're going to feel more alive than you ever have. Sorry. So anyway, yeah. So, as soon as you die, you're going to feel more yourself, more empowered, more eternal, more everything than you've ever felt. And that's true no matter where you go. So you can either go to a place of torment and feel that acutely, or you can go to heaven and feel that acutely. And I was just thinking the other day, um, I just was like, you know what, Lord, I'm thankful that my life, I live a pretty cushy life. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, in the whole scheme of everything. All right. Wow. So, anyways, what was I going to say? I was talking about either you can go to heaven or hell, and but you will be an eternal being when you get there. Um, and yeah, that is true. I don't know where I was going with that. I forgot. Oh, interruptions are great. So, yeah, I don't know if I really hammered that point, but I just felt like God was really wanting to and I don't know if I'm helping or not, but there's so many voices out there. So many people have said the same thing about what God does, requires, which ultimately comes down to you accepting Christ. And it's really tough when you've got people saying, "Oh, that's not really real, and religions aren't real, and none of that's real." And I went to, I had a heaven experience, and none punishment's not real. There's no hell. There's no none of that stuff. That's very dangerous, because No one is out here trying to make up punishments for no reason. It's much, 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 much harder to get people in a place of sobriety about how they're living their lives. So I would have no problem getting on the corner and getting on a bullhorn and telling people that there was no hill if there wasn't one. Um, all I'm saying is you might want to check. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that. It really is. That's like a heart issue, like nobody's business. And it's part of the thing. God is checking for it, because if you feel the fear and you feel the conviction and you feel the whatever, and it's going to make you do something you've never done, which is cry out to God in the middle of the night or something like that, and you were almost going to do it, but then your friend talked you down and said none of that stuff is, that's just something that people made up to control people. It's like, okay, you can believe that, but why? Like reason it out in your mind. And would you do this about anything else that was earthly? If you knew that there was a warrant out for your arrest, and if you didn't show up to court, you were going straight to jail, no questions asked, but you had to show up, and everybody was like, that's not a thing. They don't do that. Would you just go off of that? You're only going to go off of their word because you are so dysfunctional, immature, underdeveloped, delusional, and not able to face reality or any responsibility, because you could call on the phone, you could check your mailbox, you could do all of these things. They're sending you final notice, final notice, final notice. You're getting it from here, you're getting it from there. And every time you hear it, you go, oh, because it just drains you, because you've got this concert that you want to go to, and you got this thing hanging over your head that shouldn't be hanging over your head, and you desperately want to believe that it's just not going to result in anything. So you get 10 people to tell you, oh no, it's fine. And one of them is a cop. It's like, I'm a cop, I'm telling you it's fine. It's like, in the natural, it makes no sense to check up on the thing that is going to cause you the most consequence. It just doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to not double check something that where the stakes are the highest. It makes no sense to chuck out the high stakes statement just because you don't want to deal with it. Everyone would just be like, that's totally your fault that you did that. So, especially when all you got to do is like literally like call on God or like ask God if it's true or not, and you won't even do it. And I mean, it's just something you do in your body. Like, you don't even have to call anybody. You don't have to stand in line. You don't have to go down to the DMV. You don't have to pay parking, none of that stuff. You could just find out, and you just won't. Like, that's irresponsible. So it doesn't make sense that this would be such an ongoing, pressing issue for so many people, to the point where you have strangers talking to you about it and trying to ease you through the process, and none of it's real. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And even if it did make sense, you'd still go, well, let me just double check to make sure. Let me just double check. If it was something good, you would double check too. It's like, somebody told me that somebody's going to put a check for $5 million in my bank, and people go, no, they're not going to do that. Like, all I have to do is just, go confirm that this is, that I am who I am, you know, and it's like, they're not going to do that. It's just scam. It's like, okay, well, you might go, well, do I have to give away routing numbers? Like, as long as I don't have to give away stuff that they don't, you're going to find a way to securely do it. It just doesn't make sense that you would ignore the information altogether, good or bad. So this is heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. And it's real. Like, don't don't spend eternity going, why didn't I just believe what people told me? Um, so yeah, and that sort of is going into what God was showing me today, because as I was sitting and thinking and contemplating about, what, if I was okay or not, and just thinking about, things that sins that I don't even know if they're sins or not, but it's just like, what if I was deceived? What if I was delusional about that, and that's actually bad? And and just thinking about what we might have to go over when I go up to heaven. It's like, if I'm going to get judged before God, and what it's going to be like and stuff. And he gave me a memory that I think of a lot, which is of when I was a little kid, and I was like 5 years old, and not even, because where we were at, it was like one of the early places that we lived, and I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, and my cousin had this train set that he got for his birthday or something, and I wanted to play with it, but I wasn't allowed to get it out and play with it because he wasn't there to tell me that I could or couldn't play with it. And I ended up getting it out anyways and was playing with it. And my mom was like, called my name, and I was in his room, and of course, like, I'm too little to like put down the thing I was playing with, so I just had it in my hand, and I just ran out there to answer her, and so I had it behind my back. She was like, "What's in your hand?" And like, I had it behind my back, and I just switched it to the other hand and like showed her my hand, my empty hand, and she was like, "Show me your other hand." And I did the same thing with the other hand. And then she was like, "Show me both hands at once." And so I was just standing there, and I was like trying to figure out a way to like, how can I drop this thing? And I ended up just showing her both my hands and had the train in one of my hands, and I cried. And then literally nothing happened. Like, then the next thing I remember is that she was on the phone, and I was playing with it on the bed next to her while she was on the phone. But it was like that he showed me that, because it's just like, just the fact that that this is in children too, like, where, as an adult, we try to suppress this simple thing, but children have this too. And like, even my daughter, she was like, yesterday or a couple days ago, she was like, yeah, one time, she was like, when we were at somewhere, and I don't even, it's so silly that I don't even remember what she confessed to me. I'm trying to like recall it, but she was just like, oh, it was something about a phone. She was like, remember we had a phone, and um like, something happened where she lost it, or she put it down somewhere and it got broken or something like that. I think it got lost is what happened. And she was like, we blamed it on Paul, or we blamed it on somebody or something. But, I was the one that lost it or whatever. And I was like, okay. She was like, she's like, that has been haunting me forever. And I was like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm glad that you feel better now. I was like, don't you feel better after you do that? She was like, yes. But she was carrying around this thing that she had done, and she confessed it, and it was literally nothing. And so, um, as humans, as adults, we get in this thing where we feel like we can avoid this process. Like, but as a child, when we're still children, we know instinctively that it's something that we have to do and we have to go through, to the point where your children will bring it to you. And what happens? It's like, it's the same thing as when you're in court. It's like, I think I've talked about this before, or maybe not. But this thing with God, it's like when people tell you, like, listen, you're a sinner before God. You need to be saved. You need to, going down the commandments. It's like, have you ever told a lie? Have you ever disrespected your parents? Have you ever taken God's name in vain? And you trying to skirt this thing and call it religion and call it this. It's like, listen, there is a process that even us as evil, uh, corrupted beings, know that has to take place. Even if you are innocent, you still have to go to the courthouse, go before the judge, go through the process. You can't just skip the process and not go to it. That is absolutely going to not end in your favor. It's like when you have a little kid and you go, they do something bad, or they take they took the pickle or whatever, and you're trying to teach them how to be, and you're trying to teach them to be truthful, and you're trying to teach them to confront and not be scared of you and trust you. And so it's like, you go, hey, come here, or whatever. You tell them, come here. You get that stern thing in your face, and you might even be in your head like, what do I freaking tell this kid? I don't even know what to do. And like, it might come to you in the moment or whatever. And the kid comes and he's all scared. You don't even know what to do, because it's like, okay, it's not a big deal, but I know I need to do something. What do I do? And the kid comes to you all scared, and you're like, did you take the pickle? And they're like, yes. And then you're like, okay, well, I need 2 kisses on my cheek. And then they instantly are light, but they know that they have to go through the process. They know that they have to confront what they did, because they're not going to feel okay, because they feel that on them. It's like, we're all going through this human thing. And when we lie, when we do something wrong, it weighs on it. You can feel it. And when you're a kid and you're used to just having this happy, lucky, your eyes are bright, whatever, and suddenly this dark thing comes and you don't even know, but you got to like tell. It's like that is, and you as the parent, you have to navigate that child through and show them like, okay, this is how you deal with that. But what you're doing, even secular people, they have their own theories about, or they have their own parenting whatever's about this. But what's happening is you're confessing your sins one to another so that you can be healed, so that God can bless you, keeping things in the light, and dealing with this corrupt nature that you have that's warring with your original nature that God gave you. And so, little kids are like, I took the dog's toy and I sniffed it. And as a parent, you can't just go, that you don't necessarily want to be like, oh, that's not a big deal, don't worry about it. You want to take that child through the process and just give them a light sentence, which is basically like, give me your hand, and they give you your hand and you bite it, and then you say, no, get out of here. And they feel great. Not only do they feel light because they told you something, they feel like they really went through a process and that they were redeemed at the end, that they did not go through any condemnation. They were, it's like they went to court and the judge had mercy, and their slate is clean. They need to have that clean slate. You can't just go, it's not a big deal, like that. I mean, I guess you could, but you're getting ready to raise an insane person if you do that. So just like that, like God needs to take you through the process. And if you go in as a child and you say, I've done all this, but I accept Christ, I accept, God is just going to say, my son died for you so that your slate can be clean. And you're going to be like, are you serious? Yes, I will take that, please. He's like, all you got to do is sign here and say you accept it. Do you accept it? And you're like, yeah, I do. He's like, okay, good. Get out of here. Can you imagine? Can you imagine feeling the weight of whatever you did, whatever, whoever whatever you did when you didn't know any better, and the guilt and the shame and the this and the that, and however bad it was, bad the thing that it was that you did. And then God says, okay, well, my son will take it if you accept it. And you're like, accept what? If you accept, believe that he died on the cross for your sin. You're like, that's all I have to do? He's like, yeah. You're like, okay. You say, okay, great. Case dismissed. Get out of here. Like, you would be like, it's like people need to feel that. They need to feel that forgiven state. It is blissful. It is blissful. So you going, there's no such thing as hell, that's not helpful. That doesn't feel like anything. No, there's no such thing as punishment. No, that's something people made up so that for some nonsense reason that doesn't even make any sense, it doesn't work, and it doesn't even motivate people. It's not even like, when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It's just to keep people in line. It's like, what? Does it look like people are in line right now? After we got, after you get rid of it, it's like, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe we should have put that, maybe we need to put that back because people are out here acting crazy. Some of y'all need some church because who if no one's in line, who's making your breakfast? Who's making your Starbucks? Who's running your state? We need people to be kept in line. So it doesn't even make sense that uh, this idea that we're going to be free and like, anarchy is the best and we know how to govern ourselves. It's like we clearly don't. But anyways, so it's much better to have a system, and it's much more, I mean, this is something that's very apparent and obvious, um, that we all need and we all go through. It's like, go through the repentance, go through the part about being a sinner. That's not self-loathing, that's not weird mental illness that people are putting on you. It's like, no, that there's something not right. Either whether you're at a high, you're considered a upstanding citizen, or you're the lowest of the low. Something ain't right. You go to God. He says, this is what you need to do, because there's nothing you can actually do that's going to actually absolve you. You can't. I'm too holy. That's the bad news. Here's the good news, which just so happens to have to be what gospel means. The gospel is the good news. Literally all you have to do. And the reason why that's all you have to do, it's not because God is a narcissist. It's because Jesus, which I think I'm going to do a whole other video about because it literally blows my mind, like the superiority of Jesus. He is the very character of God in a human being. He died to save humanity. I just watched a video that's got me thinking about like blood and like what that even is, which maybe will go in my other video too. And it's so holy, and so the work that he did that we will be pondering over forever is so amazing and great that literally all you have to do is accept that it happened and believe it, and you will be entitled to all the riches, because God sent his only son who he loved. So as much as he loved his son, he also loved the world. And the son also loved the world because God loved the world. And this God and the Son are one. And so when you accept his family, you become family. When you deny his family and you go, no, thanks, that's okay, I'm good. It's the highest offense. It's so offensive. It's like, now we're getting into, just like high territory of holiness and just royalty. We don't have monarchies, and you can talk about, we can talk about, how monarchy is white supremacy and all of this nonsense that's been put on it. But back in the day, there was such thing as kingdoms. There was some serious kingdoms back in the day, serious dynasties, serious powerful empires that we just really don't understand. And if you went into any one of those places and you did something that was just, it didn't have to be overt, but it was just like any, these gestures that are, you just cannot do. You just cannot do. If you try to like make a pass at the queen or something, If you try to, like, there's just things you can't do. You're going to lose your head. And so it's like, you cannot just like reject Jesus and think you're going to be okay. You know, it's like God the Father is highly offended by that. Highly, highly, highly offended by that. And he should be. You know, just think of like something way, 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 way down the scale. It's just like, okay, well, these people, this family has, decided to pay your tuition through college, and you're going to be a molecular biologist or some super, super, super expensive major, and you go, you know what? Actually, I'm straight on that. No, thank you. Your family has a history of whatever thing you think you condemn them about and not take their money, and you think you've done something super fantastic. You think you're that chick from that movie, and all it did was just like they kind of go, okay, and then word spreads that you're an ungrateful wretch, and nobody should give you anything, or be careful with that one. That person doesn't look a gift. That person looks a gift horse straight in the mouth. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and it's really funny because that is kind of the spirit of the age right now. Like, I'm sure there's some people that think that is just the most fantastic in your face thing to do. It's like, you tell them you don't need their money, blah blah blah, when you desperately need money. It's like, you're young, you're starting out. It's like you don't have any awareness of where you are right now. If you're doing that, you have no idea the awareness of this place. You are crazy. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, I feel like I've driven the point home for now. But now I feel like I got some videos to make, so which I might do now since it's on my mind. So, all right, that's all I'm going to say for now. Toodles.